Video games. Video games are truly incredible. They give us the ability to explore huge infinite worlds, unleash our creativity in ways that just a few years ago were completely unfathomable. They give us the freedom to experience things in our own way, create our own adventures, tell our own stories. Some games give us no direction at all and just allow us to explore openly. Other games allow us to live out a fantasy. Maybe you're controlling your favorite sports team and succeeding in a way that they don't succeed in real life. Games can take us on epic adventures, huge sprawling stories with in-depth characters and magnificent open worlds. They allow us to envision ourselves as the character, or maybe even create our own character and live out our own fantasy within their stories. They tell us stories, sometimes with characters so well made that they rival the greatest movies in Hollywood. Sometimes the worlds are truly impressive, and we can get sucked in just by a really well-made open world. Something to explore with many secrets and untold mysteries hidden within every corner and every nook and cranny. They can allow us to do things in these games that we would never do in real life, taking on monsters, fighting huge enemies, taking on dangerous missions, things that we would never dream of or even want to do in real life. But in a video game, you can be a hero, you can be truly, truly brave. And video games can make you feel things. I mean, some games can really make you feel things. There are games nowadays that will hit you harder and make you feel more than any movie that you ever watched. Some games let us experience things that we had only dreamed of for years and years. Maybe our favorite movies come to life. But with all this amazing stuff at our fingertips, endless worlds to explore, endless adventures to go out and enjoy, why do games suck? And if games don't suck, then what is the problem? Why are so many gamers these days completely burned out? Why is every major launch of every new game riddled with bad reviews and people who are upset or let down? Why is gaming such a volatile space for so many gamers in a time when the games, you could argue, are better than they've ever been? The gaming industry, in truth, is as healthy and well-rounded as it's ever been. There are niche games, games that used to not get made, hunting games, dirt bike racing games, motorcycle racing games, so many different types of games that used to never get made because they didn't have a big enough fan base. These days, those games get made. People who are into movies or book series often get a game, like the recent Harry Potter game, fulfilling that dream for so many people who wanted to explore Hogwarts and the world surrounding it. So with all these amazing games coming out and all these possibilities and so much variety, there is so much variety in gaming these days, why are so many people just completely burned out? Well, the biggest reason is the gaming industry is run by mega corporations, these huge publishers that have development teams that are working on games from different franchises. They just keep churning out similar games over and over again. Once the recipe has been figured out on a game that will make money, a perfect example is Far Cry 3. Far Cry 3 was super successful and made Ubisoft a ton of money. So what do? They make several Far Cry games where they're trying to recapture that same magic. They're trying to have the big time actor villain and the outrageous villain and a huge open world with the same gameplay loops, the same gameplay type missions. Everything is similar, trying to recapture what Far Cry 3 did because it was so successful. And they have been successful, but a lot of people have gotten sick and tired of playing the same Far Cry game every couple of years and will no longer play those games. So what is the answer? If it's repetitive franchises where they continue to remake the same types of games, what is the answer for those of us who are burned out? Burnout is a real thing in gaming these days. What is the answer? How do we find a way to enjoy gaming again? I believe the answer is simulators. Simulators come in all different shapes and sizes. There's everything from the most hardcore simulators all the way down to simulators that are just simulating ridiculous things to be fun, like Goat Simulator or things like that. A simulator, the difference between that and a AAA RPG style game is a simulator is not giving you fetch quests. It's not giving you 200 markers on an open world map that you have to go and solve each marker or do a repetitive kill mission. Go kill these 3 guys and then return back here and talk to this NPC who told you to go kill those 3 guys. Simulators don't have grinding for loot. Everything is typically unlocked from the very beginning of the game. As soon as you start, you have everything that you could possibly need at your fingertips. The thing you don't have is you don't have the skills to succeed in that simulator. Simulators often are more difficult than regular games. Not always, but in most cases they are. Currently I'm showing DCS, which is probably the most hardcore simulator in the world, where you have to learn radar systems, all kinds of missile trajectories and capabilities to know how to make a lethal missile that can kill an enemy while also simultaneously avoiding enemies' incoming fire. The amount of hours it takes just to be able to get your first kill in a game like DCS is longer than most full-fledged AAA RPGs. It's a huge amount of work just to learn how to fly an aircraft, how to operate the radar and the weapons systems and the air-to-ground systems. And I've been flying this F-16 for almost 2 years, and I still don't know how to use about half the things it can do. So if simulators are the answer, what we're going to do today is we're going to go over 3 simulators that are available for both PC and console so that our console friends can also enjoy this list. Okay, so that's 3 simulators to help you with burnout. Now, I'm not saying if you're totally enjoying Spider-Man and having a great time with a new AAA release that you need to ditch this and go play a simulator. What I'm trying to say is, for people that are disappointed with these major releases of these great games, it's not the game's fault. If you're having a great time in Starfield, continue to have a great time in Starfield. These games are fantastic, and they were being made for years and years by huge development teams. The point is, if you want to stop and do something like Power Wash Simulator, just because it's different, just because it's not the same kind of mission structure, the grinding for loot, the go over here and kill this guy and then come back and give me the proof that you killed the guy and I'll give you a few pennies type of gameplay loop that so many games have, fetch quests and everything else. Power Wash Simulator is great. Is it something I'm going to spend 100 hours playing? Absolutely not. I've done pressure washing in real life as a second job, and I've had a lot of experience with it. It is really amazing to me that a Power Wash Simulator game is so popular these days. But what we're talking about is people that are burned out, people that are tired of the monotonous cycle of AAA games and how they seem to all feel the same after a while. This list of simulators is to help them reset, kind of get a gaming reset, do something different for a change, do something that's not driven by that corporate we have to check these boxes, that we need to have a map this big, and we need to have this many missions, and we need to have this many story missions and this many side characters, and we have to have this many fetch quests and kill quests, and those things get repetitive when you're playing every AAA game that comes out. So this list is for people that are burned out, need something different, and these simulators should help with that situation. Number 3, Red Dead Redemption 2 in first person. Now I know what you're thinking, Red Dead Redemption 2 is a massive AAA game. That is true, it's from a massive developer, but it bucks a lot of trends that most modern day games have, which is tons of markers on the maps, fetch quests, things like that. Red Dead 2 steers clear of almost all of those things. Instead, you might have 4 markers on the map at any given time if you've got a lot going on, and most of the game just comes to you as you explore the open world. There's so much to do here, and there's such an immersive world that Red Dead 2 takes place in. Everything that you can do in Red Dead becomes more immersive and more detailed in first person. It changes everything about this game. One thing that you learn very quickly when you go into first person mode is the world is huge. It's so big. It felt big when you were in third person, but when you're in first person, even the small spaces feel big. Places like Saint Denis feel absolutely massive. Even the smaller towns feel way bigger in first person. The buildings, you see how large they actually are, their interiors, how detailed everything is. All the sportsmanship type stuff, fishing, hunting is improved by playing in first person. It feels like you're playing a completely different game. Arthur is still Arthur, and there are certain times in the game where the game will switch from first person into third person briefly. Certain animations, or like getting a drink at the bar and things like that, it'll briefly show Arthur when he requests the drink. You still are Arthur Morgan. You can't completely role play that you're not him, but you can immerse yourself so much more in this cowboy simulator, because Red Dead 2 really is a cowboy simulator. It's a Wild West simulator. It has everything that a simulator would have: weather, time of day, open world, dynamic events, hunting, fishing, bad guys scattered throughout the world. The combat is so much harder in first person, but it's so much more in depth, and it's more rewarding. The shooting feels great. It feels like the game was actually designed with first person in mind, and then they just didn't tell anybody to try it when they launched the game. It's really odd. As you can see, I'm not that good at it, as I get killed here, but it's extremely immersive. But not just combat, but even the small scenarios become big. Look at this encounter with these two guys. They say something smart about me, so I antagonize them. They want to fight, but the guy on the right is going to pull a gun, which is going to cause the guy on the left to pull his gun. So he pulls his gun. Arthur knocks the gun out of his hand, then pistol whips the guy. Then there's one guy left. He shoots him, and just the immersiveness of the first person combat, the reload, how detailed the reload is, picking your hat up off the ground, all these things are so much more in depth in first person. It really, really changes the game. It feels like you're playing a new, updated, like next gen version of a game that's been out for over 5.5 years now. Like I said before, even just the little things like going to the store, going to the gun shop or the gunsmith, going to the general store. When you buy things, you can actually pick them up off the shelf in first person, and it feels like you're playing a game that is just designed to be in first person. Whoever did the first person view and all the first person animations, the way you look down at the door handle as you enter doorways and things like that, like they put so much work into this. It's incredible that the game was experienced by the vast majority of the player base in third person, because that's how everybody plays Rockstar games, is in third person. This mode changes the whole game, makes you feel like you're playing a new version of another game. And it changes everything. If the buildings in the towns feel bigger, imagine what the wilderness feels like. It feels like infinite. It feels so massive. The mountains seem so huge when you're standing up on the top of a mountain looking down. It gives you like that sense of vertigo. It's truly, truly amazing. And the hunting is much improved. Hunting is always been good in Red Dead 2, but with the first person view, you have to be more accurate with your shots. There's less aim assist in first person, so you have to be like place your shots better. As you can see, I put a shot on this elk right here, but then it wasn't a kill shot, so they got away. It's just, I know I promote Red Dead 2 on this channel a lot, and I love this game. It's my favorite game ever made. I think it's the most complete video game that's ever been created. It's number 3 on this list because it is a AAA game. It's a game that a lot of people have already played. But if you haven't tried first person, if you haven't experienced, or if you only tried it for a few minutes and went right back to the third person view, give it a shot. If you still have the game, most people probably still own it because they probably bought it digitally. If you own it, give it a shot. It's on Xbox, it's on PlayStation, it's on PC. It's fantastic on all 3 platforms. There is no bad version of this game. It's extremely optimized for all platforms. But the level of detail in everything in this game was always there. You could always see it. It was so amazing when it first came out. Well, when you try it in first person mode, that detail just comes out even more. It truly is a really enjoyable experience. Number 2, Assetto Corsa Competizione, or ACC. Now, ACC is a hardcore simulator. It is by far the most hardcore racing simulator on console, and it is on PS5 and Xbox Series consoles. It is a great racing game. It's much more detailed in a lot of ways than even some of the best sims in the world. One of the reasons for that is it only has GT racing. It has GT3 and GT4 racing, and I believe there's some DLC coming out soon that will add GT2 racing to the game, either GT2 or GT1. But it's only GT racing, no open wheel, no NASCAR, no IndyCar, nothing like that. There's no Miatas here. This is all GT racing. And GT cars, compared to other race cars, are some of the easiest to drive cars in the world as far as race cars goes. So that's why you see in a lot of these huge events, you'll see like celebrities and really wealthy people racing in some of these races, as like in the 24-hour races and stuff. You'll have celebrities that will do a stint in these GT cars, because compared to like an F1 car or a NASCAR or a supercar or any of those types of things, these are much simpler and much easier to drive. They do have traction control. They have, you know, a lot of things that typical race cars don't have. But ACC is absolutely brilliant. It looks amazing. It's made in Unreal Engine. The graphics are really good. It looks as good as any racing game out there. It may not look quite as polished as Forza Motorsport or Gran Turismo 7, but I promise you what's on offer here is so much more of a simulation. The tire physics and tire model for this game is phenomenal. The way tire pressures change throughout the course of a race, the way tire wear is handled, is really good. It's one of the best in the entire sim racing genre. There's dynamic weather. If you're brave enough to put the weather on random, you may end up racing in the rain, and in the rain it is very slippery and at times impossible to see when you have cars in front of you. You see what I'm dealing with right now? This is just light rain. This isn't even heavy rain at all. It's just light rain, and it's this much of a challenge. And you'll see the car sliding all over the place. Um, Track temperature changes everything from tire grip to engine performance. The track will rubber up over the course of the weekend. If you're doing a full race weekend where you have practice, the track will be slicker during practice, and then it'll rubber up and get a little faster for qualifying, and then at the end of the race it will be as rubbered as it would possibly get, and the traction will be better than it ever was at any other point during the race weekend. So it has dynamic things like that, weather, track simulation. Like I said, tire model's fantastic. The cars feel great. They feel really heavy. It works excellent on both wheel and controller. If you don't have a wheel, that is not a good reason to not try this sim. It's really, really good on controller. It's not as easy as, say, a Gran Turismo or a Forza, but it's a true simulator. It was never going to be that easy. This will challenge you. This will be something that'll be tough. You're going to have to learn how to drive in this game after being taught bad habits by games like Forza Motorsport or Gran Turismo, or God forbid like Need for Speed or anything like that. Anything you learn in those games, for the most part, you're going to have to unlearn for a game like ACC. But the cars are extremely fun to drive. They feel great. They sound great. The sound in this game is phenomenal. If you have a good headset or a good sound bar for your setup, the sound is really, really good. You hear all the little gravel bits bouncing off the bottom of the car if you go in the dirt, or if you go out on the outside of a curve where the marbles are, you'll hear that shimming underneath the car and rattling under the underbody of the car. When the tires or when the brakes are cold, the brakes actually squeak and squeal until they get warmed up. Temperatures and taking care of your tires and things like that. It's a true sim racer is a strategic thing. It's not just go as fast as you can. You use your brakes just as much as you use your gas. You have to time your braking points. You have to try not to hit the guy in front of you, which is hard to do. I mean, I've been sim racing for years and years, and even I will sometimes bump the guy in front of me because they brake harder than I expected them to, or sooner. You know, this is lap 1, turn 1 at Monza. Everybody's jumbled up, but you see the AI is competent enough to manage it too wide, get through there, and then get on with the racing. And the AI is very competitive. They're very aggressive. You can adjust the aggressiveness. I have, I think, aggressiveness on 95 and difficulty on, I think it's also on 95. Mostly because I was out of practice, hadn't played this in a while. I kind of focused more on AMS2 recently. But ACC, excellent game. I could never get into the original Assetto Corsa. It just wasn't for me. Never felt right for me. I was a fan of other sims at the time when it was new and exciting, and I just never got, I don't think I've ever played more than an hour of the original OG Assetto Corsa, but I love ACC. This game is fantastic, and it gives great hope for Assetto Corsa 2, which is coming sometime. Nobody really knows when. They've been very hush-hush about it, but we know it's in development, and they've been working on it for a long time, so hopefully it'll be just as good as this, or hopefully better. But when you're talking about a game, you don't have to unlock anything. There's no progression system. There is a career mode, but it's a very basic career mode. There's no grinding for a new, better car, or upgrading your car, or anything like that. The cars are what they are. You try multiple cars till you find one that feels good to you. They're all competitive in their own way. Some are better on short bursts, some are better in long high speed areas, some have better handling, some are better weight transfer, some are front engine, some are rear engine. They all are competitive in their own ways, and you can be fast in every car in this game, even the ones that people don't like. I've seen people be extremely fast. I used to run a racing league in ACC, A lot of guys in the league used all different cars. Some of the cars that were told by the majority that they were, terrible cars. Some of these guys would go get in that car and turn it into a beast and dominate all season long in that car. So it's a great sim. It's something that lets you learn a skill. That's what these simulators are for. Learn some type of skill or learn how to overcome, challenges. It's not about grinding for a better gun or a better armor or better outfit or whatever a lot of these games nowadays focus on, which is loot. A lot of them sadly are pay to win. You got to pay to get the better outfit. You got to pay to get the better loot. Simulator like this is just hardcore. Here's your number 1, SnowRunner. Now, SnowRunner is different than the other games on this list. SnowRunner is a bit of a grind. It can be a lot of a grind sometimes. You start off with some very meager assets and some trucks that are not very capable. Luckily, you start off on easier maps where things are not as extreme. But there are difficult areas even on the easier maps, and with those beginner trucks, you will struggle. You will get stuck. You will have to rescue yourself back to the garage on several occasions because this game is brutal. What SnowRunner does so well, and the reason that it is number 1 on this list, is because it is the polar opposite of modern gaming. Modern gaming is about kill 1,000 guys in a 40-minute match, run around like crazy, shoot a tank with a rocket launcher, grapple hook up to the roof of a building, shoot down a overhead jet with an anti-air missile, jump back in the building, shoot 5 more guys in the face, and then get killed and do it all over again. It's running around like a chicken with your head cut off at all times. SnowRunner, on the other hand, is the exact opposite. SnowRunner is slow. It is methodical. Once you get your objective truck that has the repair parts and the fuel that you need for your mission completely stuck in the river, you have to go get another truck. And then you have to pull the truck that has the things you need across the river because it's extremely heavy because of the fuel and the repair parts that it's carrying. So you have to rescue it. Now, if you have a friend or multiple friends, you can do all this in multiplayer, and one guy can run support while the other guy runs the objective vehicle, and you can work together, and it's much less time consuming, and it's also a lot more fun if you have friends you can play with. But trust me, as someone who has played the SnowRunner, MudRunner games for years, a lot of years actually, mostly solo. I have played with friends quite a bit, but I've played a lot more by myself. The game is absolutely playable by yourself. You just have to coordinate what truck is going to be support truck, what truck is going to be your mission critical truck, and you have to coordinate what objectives you're going to settle on first, which ones are most important. Now, if this game looks terribly boring to you, if it looks like something that you absolutely would not want to pay money for, I understand. SnowRunner is not for everybody. This is absolutely a challenging game. It is a frustrating game. It is a simulation in the most hardcore way, but different than like ACC where it's simulating real life. SnowRunner is simulating somewhat real life, but they're simulating extreme weather circumstances, flooded towns, downed bridges, downed roads. You have to go through the wilderness a lot of the time because the bridges are out until you can rebuild the bridges. To rebuild the bridges, you have to deliver supplies that are needed to rebuild the bridge. Certain parts of the map will be completely cut off until you get those supplies. As you go and progress through the game, you will accrue more and more vehicles that are more capable. As you can see, I'm pretty far into the game, so I have a lot of bigger, stronger trucks, which everybody, by the time they get to the map that I'm on, most likely would be pretty well equipped. They would have good vehicles. There's also DLC that you can buy, and the DLC is extremely affordable. You can get a certain truck, like if you like the look of, or if somebody on YouTube tells you, hey, this is the best truck, a lot of times you can pick it up for $3 or $5 or less. But there's also, if you never buy a single piece of DLC for this game, there is a ton of content just in the base game, so you don't have to go pay to win or anything like that. You can totally enjoy this game without any of that. But if you love it like I do and become absolutely addicted to it like I am, I've been playing this game for a long time already, and I still play it on the regular. But if you love it that much, then buying a few DLC packs to add to, add some new maps or add some new trucks is not going to bother you one bit. So you see, this is what the game is. You get an objective. Objective says rebuild the bridge. You go to locations where the supplies are at. Sometimes you can go to like a sawmill. Well, I can't get to the sawmill in this map because the bridge is out that goes to the sawmill. So not only do I have to rebuild the bridge that I'm working on right now, which I'm picking up lumber for, but then I have to rebuild the bridge to the sawmill to even complete the mission that I'm in the middle of right now, because there's not enough lumber scattered throughout the map to complete that mission. So once I get done hauling this lumber, I'm going to have to turn around, go get the supplies for the other bridge, and those are going to be like stone slabs and steel beams, which are heavier loads. Like this is a wood load, and it's definitely heavy, and it can cause you to tip over and everything. But when you get to like the steel beams or the concrete, then you're carrying a lot more weight, and it becomes a lot more treacherous. It's easier to get stuck because you weigh so much. It's also much easier to flip over because you're top heavy because of all the weight that you're carrying. The game has been called Dark Souls in mud, and it's a really good description of what SnowRunner is. SnowRunner is the best game in the franchise. These guys originally made Spin Tires years ago. Then they made Mud Runner, and now they made SnowRunner, and they have another game coming out soon, although I think it is more of a story campaign type game and less open than this, which I think a lot of people will not like. These games are extremely open. They allow you to kind of complete missions, except the ones where you need to get across a bridge or something like that. That might be something you would have to do sooner. But there's missions scattered all throughout all the maps. Sometimes you're rescuing a truck that's trapped down in a ravine or something, and you have to use a crane to lift it out of the ravine. Or sometimes you're finding an upgrade for one of your trucks that's way up in a mountain and it's in the woods and there's no roads there, so you literally have to work your way through the forest and just go through whatever kind of terrain you run into, mud holes, swamps, whatever, to get this upgrade that will make one of your trucks better. It is a grind, and it is a very difficult game. It's not a game, if you're easily frustrated, it's probably not the game for you. But after playing the modern day shooters or story AAA games with all the craziness and explosions and combat and fast-paced action and wild stories and all that kind of stuff, this game is the perfect way to unwind. Take a few days, quit playing those other games, put Call of Duty Warzone down, or whatever game it is that's stressing you out that you used to love but you're not loving it right now. You're starting to hate big AAA games. A lot of people are upset about Starfield. Starfield was a great game. Spider-Man, great game. A lot of people complaining it's not as good as the first Spider-Man. It's not that it's not as good as the first Spider-Man. It's that it's the second one, and you've already played that game. So now you're playing another one, and you're let down by Spider-Man 2. That's just human nature. You're doing the same thing. It's not going to be as exciting the second time around. So SnowRunner is a perfect, let me just step away from everything I normally do and go check out something completely different. Something that makes me slow down, take in the scenery a little bit, grind against impossible odds and impossible terrain and impossible weather situations and flooded towns and everything else, and just grind out some delivery missions. Usually they're pretty simple delivery missions. Go over here, pick up some stone, drive the stone across the map. Well, the map's flooded and all the roads are out, so you got to go through the mountains. Okay, well, we're going to mud crawl through the mountains, and it's just it's not hard to figure out what to do or anything like that. It is tough, it is challenging, but it's fun. And if you have friends that you can play it with, it's even way better. And on Xbox, it's on Game Pass, so you can play it on Game Pass. If you and your friends have Game Pass, you can play this game for nothing. It's an absolutely incredible game. And that's why it's number one on this list as a change of pace, something to help you love gaming again. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I hope you had a good time with it. I hope that it helps you try something. Even if you don't try any of the games on my list, try something more of a simulator, less of a mainstream game, and see if you can't find that love of gaming once again.